Today's episode is brought to you by 9centprinting.com. With over 100 five-star reviews, 9centprinting.com is ready to meet all your printing needs. Are you a church plant or small church with no copy machine? No problem. 9cent Printing has you covered. If you need bulletins, flyers, books, cards, offering envelopes, posters, they do it all. I know the Christian owners of this business personally, and I'm not just a fan, I'm also a customer. Fast, nationwide shipping, affordable, professional, wow printing at wow prices. Check them out at 9centprinting.com. Welcome to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. This podcast is a ministry of the Small Town Network. We exist to make disciples, train pastors, and plant churches in smaller communities. My name is Eric Nielsen, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tony Colomb. How's it going, Tony?
Oh, pretty good, just winding down summer out here. So ready for school to start and get back in a rhythm.
And when summer's over, hunting starts. So we're
Absolutely
very close.
Yes.
We're joined today by my friend Jim Frech from Pittsburgh, Kansas. How's it going, Jim?
Doing all right. Yep.
Good, man.
Glad to be with you guys.
Yeah, good to have you on. Jim and I actually met on a screen like this at what was it called? I always forget, the Bonhoeffer Project.
The Bonhoeffer Project, yeah.
Good experience, kind of if you kind of shout out to Bonhoeffer Project if you want to go through their discipleship training. That was good. I met Jim on a screen, and recently I had a chance to go fly out to Kansas and have lunch with him. What was that place we were at? Like the iconic college dive restaurant in Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, the Pit.
The Pit.
The Pit.
Yeah. Pittsburgh. I should have remembered. Yeah.
Aptly named, yeah.
Right.
And after we met, you don't know this, after we met, Jim, I tried to grow my goatee really long and I just gave up. I got it down to about like here, and I'm like, I can't pull it off. I don't have the mojo that you've got.
No, it's all right.
Well, like we talked about off screen, we kind of always have our guests kind of tell us about themselves. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are, married, kids, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll kind of get into your kind of life story and your journey toward ministry.
Sure. Yep. So family-wise, I've been married to Rhoda for 33 years. We've got 4 kids, and they range from 31 to just 18, freshmen in college. They've so 3 girls and my oldest is a boy. We've got 1 granddaughter, and she's 2. Dorothea Jean is just a little spunk of dynamite. She's awesome, and really, all the kids are pretty close, not just in relationship but proximity. We've got one at college in Joplin, which is not too far from us. 1 living at home doing her grad work, and 1 married and newly married. My son-in-law is at Ozark still, finishing up. And then like I said, our son and daughter-in-law live about an hour and a half away. And he's active in their church and doing worship ministry and small group stuff. We've talked a lot about discipleship and how that all plays out in the small church in a smaller town there. So those are our kids. And our ministry here has been 6 years at Countryside Christian Church here in Pitt. And my wife is a baker and a barista. She works at a local coffee shop that does all kinds of their own coffee bean roasting and baking, and everything's homemade. So if you're ever in Pittsburgh, go to Signet Coffee Roasters and ask for Rhoda. She'll fix you up.
Well, that's like they always say, like, if the secret to successful long-term ministry is who you marry. So you nailed it on the barista / baker.
Yeah, and that's just scratching the surface. I wouldn't not be where I'm at doing what I'm doing without her, for sure.
Man. Well, shout out to Rhoda. And you've got 1 grandkid?
Yep. Yeah, I got a granddaughter, 2 years old.
I've got awesome. 1 granddaughter, and I've got 1 on the way. So I'll see your granddaughter and raise you 1.
Yeah. Yeah. The other ones we're working on them, but we'll see what happens there.
Well, you've got 4 kids, and I've only got 2, so probably in the long run you're going to outpace me. But being a grandpa's pretty good gig, isn't it?
Oh man, it's fantastic. We love it. Yeah, don't get to see them as often as we want, but
we'll just turn this We'll
new
just
grandpa.
turn this episode into the grandpa
Oh
episode,
yeah.
and I'll just bow out now because
Dude,
you guys are like,
I used to get annoyed by new grandpas because they were like, I'm a grandpa. And now I'm like totally in that zone. I'm like,
Oh yeah. Let me
I'm
show
in
you
the
a picture.
club. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that's
Hey
awesome though.
Jim, well, hey, why don't you tell us a little bit like growing up, like what was your faith background? How did you become a disciple of Jesus? Kind of tell us your testimony, if you will.
Yeah. So raised in a house that wasn't religious, wasn't my parents didn't know Jesus. They were raised by their parents who were probably good people. They just weren't connected. And I say that loosely, just they came out of some, my parents came out of some either substance abuse or some relational dysfunction that I can only imagine. I saw it when I was older with my grandparents, but it really all started when someone, and I'll find out who, when I get to eternity, somebody invited my mom to church when I
Mm.
was probably 5 years old,
Wow.
and I have one sister, little sister, and so my mom and and my little sister started going to this church. Um, my dad was not about it.
Mm.
What I remember was that he either objected, they argued about it. I'm not sure how it all played out at home, but I do remember the tension. And it wasn't until some men in my church um, reached out to him, started really just forming a friendship, and he gave his life to the Lord. I saw him baptized when I was around 9 or 10,
Wow.
and so those were the beginning years of just learning about Jesus, learning about the Bible, going to children's church downstairs in the old church basement, and singing all the songs and learning all the stories,
Mm.
and really knowing what it's like to be a part of a church family, having Sunday school teachers just love you as a kid, knowing that the older men weren't as scary as they, looked. But sorry, I'm going to turn this off. Um, and then the what my parents were raised with. Sometimes when you shine light on that, and you shine the light of Scripture and the light of Jesus on some of that stuff, um, I like what Pete Scazzaro says about Jesus may be in your heart, but Grandpa's in your bones.
Mm.
And it was those family systems that got challenged by the faith,
Mm.
and then when their marriage started shaking, um, that's when I think they got really hard, and it wasn't handled very well.
Mm.
So in the midst of them finding Jesus, and in the few years of really trying to navigate new faith, um, their marriage fell apart.
Hmm.
And it wasn't in small part by even the church that I went to. And I can't really tell that story, but I was raised in a house that knew Jesus, wanted to love Jesus,
Mm.
um, but also in a church that loved me well, but in the sense of my family just blew apart when
Mm.
I was a teenager. Um, so in that sense, my church family, um, they didn't exclude my sister and me, but it was really hard for my parents to stick around. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there was a time where until I started driving, I couldn't go to church.
Mm.
But for some reason, even as an angsty teenager, I wanted to grab my sister, get in my car, and drive the 15, 20 minutes to go to church on Sunday morning. And that was a lifeline. I think that's what it was. I needed those people.
Mm.
When we're in a single parent house now, and mom is absent, dad is struggling. These are the only people I know that have any stability.
Mm.
And I didn't go because I love Jesus as much as I know that that was a safe place for my sister and me.
Mm.
So that
Isn't
was
that interesting, Jim? Like that we talk so much in like the disciple making culture about biblical community, and we need it's
Mhm.
not just information that we need in our head, we need that community. And so before you even had that language, right? As a teenager, you're craving that community. Even if you didn't have like a deep yearning for Jesus at that point,
Mm-mm.
you knew those people could give you that. I don't mean to get you off track, but I just,
No, it's okay.
yeah.
Underline that because it really is important. And so people say, what's the big deal about going to church all the time?
Mm.
Um, I can just underline all kinds of reasons to be involved in a local congregation, and not the least of which kept me afloat,
Mm.
even as, like I said, I was just an angry kid. And my dad, he appreciated that. He wanted us to go. He wasn't going to go, but he understood the value for us to do that. Um, and so that's kind of a picture of my upbringing um, in the local church and a faith at home. Whereas, um, my folks have now and have for a while now a pretty solid faith, and they've come around. It's been a struggle. It's been a long road for that.
Mhm.
But my church family set me up to have a foundation and be able to thrive even later on, much later on. Um, I keep telling people if it weren't for the old ladies in my church, I wouldn't be here.
Mm.
If it weren't for those men that prayed for me,
Mm.
the guys whose signatures are on my ordination certificate are right above my head.
Mm.
They're with Jesus now, but
Wow.
they're
Mm.
indispensable with
Mm.
just making sure I was seen and known
Mm.
and loved, even if I didn't want to be seen or
Mm.
known or loved.
It's awesome. Yeah. What about the community that you grew up in general? Was it like a bigger community, a smaller community? Because
Mm.
sometimes like that family drama in a smaller community can really have some bad implications as far as how people are going to interact with you. And so I'm just kind of curious about that because there's some of those dynamics with reputation and stuff going on in a smaller community versus a bigger community can pose a challenge.
Yeah, I don't think I was aware of any of that.
Mm.
Um, Now, so the school that I went to was a smaller school. We lived outside of a bigger town,
Hmm.
but the school that I went to was in a small town, maybe 600 people.
Mm.
It was a
Mm.
county school. It was maybe 60 kids in my class, and
Okay.
that was where my dad went to school.
Okay.
And so people knew the name, but they didn't necessarily have any connection to, like, my grandpa even owned a sawmill in that town back
Okay.
in the years before. But it wasn't like there was any huge, like in my mind, any huge pressure or reputation to overcome, people
Mm.
talking about us or whatever. It wasn't that.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know if that was a big deal for me
Mm.
anyway.
Well, and that's nice because it elevates just how loving that church was a little bit in my mind, because of being in a smaller town of 6,000 people, county of 40,000 people.
Hmm.
It's easy for even churches sometimes in these contexts to kind of like, okay, this family or this person in town is bringing a bad look on us, so we're going to kind of cut them off and not pay attention. But those churches
Mm,
rise above that and say, we don't care. We're going to love these people anyways. What a beautiful thing. And what a maybe even more potent demonstration of the grace of Jesus. So it's
yeah.
really,
So what was the moment like, Jim, when you gave your life to Christ and were baptized, and like what's that?
Hmm.
When did that happen?
Yeah. So not too long after my mom started taking us to church, I just started really learning a lot. I think I was probably 7 or 8 years old. Um, and I was a shy kid, compliant. I wanted to please people. Um, and learning about how I operated as a kid, it was a lot of fear. I think that was probably reflective of the kind of the atmosphere in my house. Um, and so I approached God that way in a lot of ways too. Um, the relationship with my dad now was pretty good, pretty deep. At the time, he didn't quite know how to handle kids. He was raised by an abusive alcoholic, and so when
mm,
he had kids, he was emotionally either not sure how to do that, but so there was some dad issues that I had growing up. But what I wanted to do was to please God more than anything.
mm,
And I knew I was overly conscious about my own faults. And so as an 8-year old, I'm like, okay, I get it. I sin, and sin is bad, and sinners go to hell, and I don't want to go there.
Right.
So Jesus can fix that problem, and he died so that I could be saved. And so I want that. And that was my understanding. And when the preacher came over to our house and I told him that, he looked at my mom and he's like, well, looks like he's good. So we went and did the whole baptism thing. And I've never really questioned that. I think a lot of people come out after a childhood decision like that, and they think, well, maybe I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was doing.
Totally.
And I'm sure I didn't know all the theological implications of what I was doing. I just knew that I was the sinner, and sinners are lost, and Jesus saves sinners. And that was, I mean, I appreciated at least the preacher at that point for affirming the childlike faith and going ahead and allowing. And so I went ahead and did that in an infancy kind of way, growing from there. I didn't necessarily lose the whole works-based salvation mindset out of fear, but it took me a while to get to know what grace is. But that's part of the process.
So how did you from there, let's kind of fast forward and say, how did you get into ministry? Like, what was your path from that childhood and that experience to like growing up and going into ministry?
Yeah, nutshell, as I didn't want to. I had no desire whatsoever. In fact, I sing the praises of the people in my home church, and almost without exception, except for one preacher he came like my senior year of high school. So I mean, I went through all these years of growing up at this church with maybe two, three, I can remember at least three preachers that went through, but until my senior year, none of those guys were any influence on me. None of those guys had a voice in my life. In fact, they were all big reasons why I never wanted to be in ministry.
Oh no!
Oh wow! Oh wow! Yeah.
Seriously. I
Yeah.
mean, as time went on and I got to piece this together in my head, like I mean, I love my church, but I have no desire to do what they do or be who they are. Because I just saw either there's no connection there, or what they lived was a drastic contradiction to what they taught. And it affected me very personally, and my family too. So it was a hard decision. I'm the reluctant guy. In fact, I mean, my story of even getting to Bible college was basically I'm headed one way, and God, through some providential relationships and circumstances, and me just saying, okay, I'll try this, lifted me out of the plan that I had and sent me at that point to Kentucky Christian College, which is, I think, KCU right now. That year and a half was basically reform school for me. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I had some sin in my pocket, and I knew basically what the Bible said, but I didn't really care a whole lot. And that year and a half was formative in the sense of I had to shed a lot of me, a lot of the old me, and so my road to Ozark was a bit of a long detour as well. It was again, I'm a people pleaser. I want to not disappoint people, but I didn't want to go that route as far as ministry goes. And so even when I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm humbled now. I came home, Bible college, and a short stint at a university wasn't what I wanted, wasn't what I needed. God was like, you need to get home and get yourself grounded somewhere. And so it's a long story short. After 2 years of struggling through a college situation, I went home. My dad said, "Okay, you can come home, but you got to have a plan." I got 2 jobs. I basically worked, I ate, I slept, and I read my Bible and went to church.
Mm.
Back to my home church,
Oh, really?
where yeah, yep, back to where the preacher that I mentioned that came my senior year, who was actually a very good influence on me. He started seeing the family history. He got to learn a few things, and he and his wife took me under and my sister under their wings, and really started helping us heal.
So that's like
Uh,
as a young adult at that point.
Yep, I'm maybe 19, 20 years
Okay.
old at this point.
Mm.
And so I took some time off of school, not knowing what I was doing. But again, I'm working, I'm sleeping, I'm eating, I'm going to church, I'm reading my Bible.
What
And it
can
was
you
in that,
just real quick
what's that?
on what
Yeah, yeah.
so what was the reason why you didn't want to go into ministry? Is it just are you saying it's because like all the ministers you saw, you weren't real impressed with them? Is that kind of the reluctance?
There was that example that I didn't have. In fact, it was a negative example that I didn't want to follow.
Right.
And two, I didn't think that I could do it.
Oh, okay. Like a
There,
confidence.
Sure.
oh yeah. I mean, so again, I'm operating out of fear most of the time. And so there's this lack of confidence, lack of calling. I know that God is good. I know that Jesus can heal, but he doesn't need me.
Right.
Mm.
And so that was like a long road to get to where I could even say yes to even some preparation.
Is that
Uh,
so? Why did you go to Bible college if you were like, I don't want to be a
well, that
minister?
was against my will.
Against
Again,
your will.
I didn't want to go. I mean, you'll find, so by the end of our conversation, you will find that
Okay.
the common denominator is I just did what I felt God calling me to do in the moment, no matter if I felt
Mm.
like doing it or not.
Hey, God can use that, man. We need more
Yeah,
people
Indeed.
like that.
yeah,
The whole book full of stories like that.
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Okay, so
and I
continue. So I got
yeah.
you off track. So this guy took you under his wing, and
So coming back to my home church was in that almost a year where I was out of school just working was very formative in a healing sense. I got some other relationships with men in that church that helped me get involved with, say, some music stuff or in some youth ministry volunteer role. Um, and I liked being there. I mean, there was still those old ladies that were just like, "Oh, Jim, you're all grown up, going to college, and we love seeing you." And there were those people still that I love being around. And it was in those times when I would be, with the scriptures and trying to search out what God really wanted. I really felt like He was pressing in, and I didn't know it at the time, but the preacher there and other men were trying to disciple me, and heal some of the stuff going on. And so I'm like, okay, fine. I'll find a Bible college. I don't even know where. This was before the internet, and so I
Right.
went to the library of all things,
I remember
and
libraries.
yes, and found this book or this directory or whatever, and I wrote letters, handwritten letters to
Yes.
every Bible college that we had in the Brotherhood. So my preacher helped me with this. So there's Cincinnati, and there's Lincoln, and there's Milligan, and there's St. Louis Bible College in Florida, and there's one in California. I don't know, it's Hope University now or something like that.
I hope.
Yeah.
And Ozark and Manhattan and all these. I just wrote letters to all of them
Hmm.
and said, "Hey, I'm interested. What do you have?" And I feel like God's calling me to go to Bible college for some reason. And every single one of them sent me packets and form letters and little stickers or whatever. And Ozark was the only one that sent me a handwritten letter from a student representative in their admissions department.
Hmm. Okay.
And I'm like, that caught my attention.
Yeah.
And so I went for a visit. My dad thought I was crazy. But he's like, hey, you got to follow the Lord, I guess. And so that fall I enrolled in fall of '89. I landed and spent 4 years arguing with God, no, I'm going to be in the counseling ministry. No, I'm going to be a teacher. No, I'm going to be, okay, I'll cave and at least I'll be maybe a youth minister so I don't have to be the senior guy and have all the pressure. And so I got a youth internship in Ohio and spent 2 summers doing that. In the process, met my wife. We got married, and she just was like, you can do this. If God's going to call you to it, He's going to help you do it." And she's been the strength and the believer when I didn't want to or didn't feel like I could,
Wow.
to just say, because she saw something in me that I never saw and didn't want to see. I didn't. If you know more about me, not only am I operating out of fear when I'm in an unhealthy place, I'm averse to risk and I don't like failure, because nobody wants to be incompetent. So I knew that there's plenty of failure to be had and there's plenty of risk you got to take to do church work, and I wasn't about that. But little by little, it's this thing called faith just keeps growing. And I take one more step toward obedience, one more step toward obedience, one more step toward obedience. And that's where I found myself finishing school at Ozark, getting this degree and wondering now, okay, well, now what do I do with this? And that's when we're like, okay, if we're all in, then I guess we're going to try this thing. So
there's a lot of guys, man, that graduate Bible college and then like that's it. And like they just kind of like at that point they kind of go offline in terms of like ministry. They just go get a secular job or whatever. And I think there's a real tension of like, man, this just got like real. Like I gotta go be at a church and apply for a church and like lead people and like it's weird. You would think that you'd see that coming, like
right.
Tony, what were you saying?
Oh,
and I'm enough.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
It is wild. Like I remember a bunch of, particularly in the missions department, like students for some reason, because I mean, that's a whole nother ball game, trying to raise money, then to move counterculture, cross-culturally, and all of that business. It's a completely different ball game. So, yeah, but a lot of them did not make it to the mission field. They like stayed in the area, worked at like Applebee's or someplace like that until eventually they got a better job and settled down and raised family. It's crazy. And a lot of them even in church, period.
Right. We're not critical.
Oh, wow.
There's that kind of like get real moment where you go,
yeah,
okay, here we go. So, I want to just pause and say, your testimony, man, like, I just think that's like, we need to like capitalize on that because these men that prayed for you, and were mentoring you and this pastor that took you under his wing and you experienced, even though, it's hit and miss throughout your childhood, you experienced like the love of like the local church, like taking you in, being your family, encouraging you into ministry. And that thing you said really grabbed me about like the men on the ordination certificate above my, my head for those same guys. Like, oh man, that's incredible. And what a joy, not only for you, like, but for them. Can you imagine, like, for them to like go, we're gonna pray this guy and love this guy into ministry, and then to actually be there on the day you got ordained? That's incredible. So was that did your home church ordain you? So what's the church? What's the church?
It's Parkview Christian Church right now. When I was a kid growing up, they called it Parkview Church of Christ. And they figured out, I guess, that a Church of Christ is not instrumental for most places, and they're not. So if you're in Texas and you go to a Church of Christ, you know exactly that's a non-instrumental church. But if you're in Ohio, it's like, we can be both,
Parkview, Ohio can go either way.
Parkview Christian Church in Findlay, Ohio is where I was raised, and that's the church that invested in me and loved me.
Let me ask you a couple questions and we'll kind of wrap up this half and then get into your small town church track record as we'll talk about for our second one. So how is all the love and encouragement you receive from those guys and the mentorship, how has that helped you as a pastor? Has that kind of shaped your approach to mentoring young people working with people in terms of like from broken families, investing, and has that kind of shaped your approach to people now as the minister?
Yeah, I don't know how it doesn't.
Mm.
I mean, last month I sat down with a 16-year-old kid whose parents are split up now, and just not trying to wrap him up in my story, but just say, these are some emotions I'm pretty sure you're feeling right now,
Mm.
and things that's going through your head. So it does help to equip me for that. But just to say, you never know what God is going to do with any kid running through that building. I think that the tendency is for us to pigeonhole the kids that are behaving, the kids that know a lot, the kids that are either
Mm.
the parents are going to church or whatever. And none of that applied to me. I mean,
Mm.
and so when you indiscriminately love children as a church, you never know where those seeds are going to land.
Mm.
And so when we're in this small town and we have these kids coming whose parents don't attend, in
Right.
fact, we had this bus ministry. I don't want to jump the gun here, but it was like we brought these kids in. And in the moment, you can think, not a single one of these knuckleheaded third graders is listening to a word I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, for sure.
And it matters little what you're saying. It matters an awful lot how
Mm.
they are treated. And that this church building, this place is a place of safety, love, and fun. And yes, I know Jesus better now because I've been here. So
Mm.
that has influenced an awful lot of how I feel and think and operate. Um, and it's part of my story. I like telling it because volunteers in a local church sometimes have this idea like, well, what I'm doing, I'm just making cheese sandwiches. I'm just, giving kid a plate of nachos or whatever. But no, it's the nacho lady that made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it's the guy that stocked the Pepsi machine, the vending machine in our fellowship hall. Can you imagine that? I mean,
Yeah.
those old things. It was a quarter. You put a quarter in, you open the door and pull the
Uh-huh.
16-ounce bottle out of there.
Uh-huh.
And he was the guy that stocked that because he worked for Pepsi, and he always had a pocket full of quarters. And
Mm.
you know what he did? He went around to every one of those kids and said, "Hey, you want a quarter?" He didn't ask the parents if it was okay. His kids were like, "Yeah, Larry's cool. Well, this Larry's great. We can go get a bottle of Pepsi before we left youth group."
Yeah.
Nice. Dude, that's gonna be like the
Awesome.
trailer, like the header for like this episode,
Yeah.
the Nacho Lady.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nacho Lady led me to Jesus. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's great, man. I appreciate you opening up and sharing all this. I love
Super.
stories, because I think it's not just recounting what happened, but it's also casting vision.
Mm.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of people like the Nacho Lady and the Pepsi guy and the person that stacks chairs, and they just don't know
Yeah.
what it means to people to just be that friendly face, that person that shakes their hand, that
Mm.
guy that's glad to see
Hmm.
you, that person that says little things like drive-by things like, you're doing great, I believe in you, good
Hmm.
job. My wife's a public school teacher, and some of these kids that she encountered are just starved for
Yeah.
attention and
Hmm.
positive affirmation. And if if anybody in the world should be the ones that are being nice to children and encouraging young people and putting up with teenagers, it ought to be the body of Christ. So
Mm.
Yeah.
shout
Yes.
out to any of those people that are still with us that helped you out, man.
Yeah.
That's one of the things as you get older, I'm like, man, a bunch of my Bible college professors are dead, and a lot of
Yeah.
my former preachers are dead. And I'm like, as you get older, it's like you kind of see where this is all heading.
Yep. Yeah.
Tony's a young guy. He's got years to worry about stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, listen, why don't we end there? Let's give a little
Okay.
teaser for the next one. Tell us the town that you worked in that we're going to talk about is what again?
Galesburg, Kansas was where we
Galesburg,
were for
Kansas.
14 years,
Population
125 or so, with the
125
dogs,
people.
cats,
Okay.
and roosters and chickens and stuff.
I cannot wait to talk
Yeah.
about that. That is
Yeah.
actually is absolutely fascinating to me. So Why don't we go ahead and do our wrap up? We'll end this episode. Hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out our sponsor, 9centprinting.com. If you like what we're doing, please like or subscribe. If you're interested in Small Town Network, you can find us online at smalltownnetwork.com. And if you believe in the importance of planting disciple-making churches in smaller communities, we'd love you to consider partnering with us in prayer and financial support. You've been listening to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by 9centprinting.com. With over 100 5-star reviews, 9centprinting.com is ready to meet all your printing needs. Are you a church plant or small church with no copy machine? No problem. 9cent Printing has you covered. If you need bulletins, flyers, books, cards, offering envelopes, posters, they do it all. I know the Christian owners of this business personally, and I'm not just a fan, I'm also a customer. Fast, nationwide shipping, affordable, professional, wow printing at wow prices. Check them out at 9centprinting.com.